Hello there, my name is Dr. Maitland Hislop and welcome to the fifth in my series of videos on resilience. In previous videos we've looked at personal values, organisational values, some threats to the United Kingdom and context. In this video we're going to look at uncertainty, risk and dependency briefly. If we look at uncertainty, there are two types of uncertainty. There is descriptive uncertainty and there is measurement uncertainty. Descriptive uncertainty is a difficulty describing something, and measurement uncertainty is a difficulty measuring something. In addition to these two key issues, we also have to have a look at the impact of rational man and irrational man. So for many years economic theory was based on the reaction of rational man. But as we all know, men and women are irrational, and therefore uncertainty comes into the behaviour of people too. Equally, processes can be random or planned, and so there is an equal amount of uncertainty to be looked for in terms of processes. And the reduction of uncertainty in terms of description, measurement, people and processes is important in terms of reducing risk in society. And most of the time society functions reasonably well and smoothly. So you get on the train in the morning, the signalling all works, the train arrives on time, you get taken to work, the office is open, the PCs are working, you can contact clients, and in the reverse order you can get back on the train, go home and perhaps have some dinner and a drink, all of which can be sourced or provided in good time with appropriate planning. No uncertainty. But as the signalling goes down and there's a power cut at work and there's no food in the supermarket and the pubs are closed, then there's all of a sudden a lot of uncertainty in society. And society has basically spent centuries removing uncertainty from the way it functions. And cities, submarines, aircraft carriers are very good examples of entities where uncertainty has been removed pretty much from the system, notwithstanding events like BREXIT or COVID. So risk is risk management is a function of understanding uncertainty. And risk identification involves the reduction of descriptive uncertainty. And risk estimation involves the reduction of measurement uncertainty. We put those two things together and we look at risk evaluation, and this involves a risk aversive reaction dependent on what's happening to the descriptive and measurement uncertainty. So just to go over those a little bit again, risk estimation has a causative event, it has an outcome, it has exposure, it has consequences, and those consequences have a cost, a pound sign against them. Risk evaluation refers to a risk level, a reference level for risk. What risk will be accepted, what level of risk would be accepted, and what happens to that reference level when a new risk is introduced. Then we can compare risks and we can take action. So this is how we start to build up a picture of risk. Now, the systematic control of risks requires a plan, it requires a system, and it requires quality assurance. And we take these risk estimations and risk evaluations and we put them together and we bring them under something which we call a risk scorecard. And a risk scorecard would list the risks involved in an organisation. It would give them a likelihood of occurrence. It would give an impact of that occurrence, and it would decide whether to track or treat the risk. It also gives some responsibility for managing it. But let's just talk about likelihood, impact, tracking and treating. The likelihood and impact are normally dealt with on a 5x5 matrix. So the something could happen, an event could happen, and that might be the possibility of that happening, or the probability of that happening, maybe 1 to 5, and the impact of that happening would also be listed on 1 to 5. So something which has a very high likelihood and a very high impact would be 5 and 5. That would be times together. So that would give you a score of 25. So 5 by 5 equals 25. So that's how a 5 by 5 matrix works. So anything with a score of 25 would probably have to be treated, whereas something with a score of 5 might just be tracked. You see how the scorecard works. Likelihood, impact, score, track or treat. Now, there are many different categories that can be associated with a scorecard, but here we're just going to take 8. And we would say for an organisation that the first element of the scorecard would be leadership. So if the CEO, for example, had had a heart attack, then the likelihood of him being ill again would rise. The impact of that illness could be quite severe. He might die. So it would probably be fairly high risk. So let's call it a 25, give it a score of 25. So it would need to be treated. How would we treat it? Then, well, maybe we'd give him an understudy or more medication or something along those lines. So you see how the likelihood, impact, track and treat work. So in that particular case, leadership might have itself several subcategories. There might be one for the CEO, there might be one for teams, there might be one for research, there might be one for development, etc. A second element might be business design, a third might be business ecosystem, a fourth might be the business environment. These are different elements. So a business design is, how is your organization constructed? What does it look like? Not just the organization chart, but the machinery, the servicing elements, all these sorts of things would be coming to what a business design actually looks like for your organization. And are you fit for purpose? Does that design make sense in the current world? The business ecosystem is what the environment, what the ecosystem your business operates in. So it's to do with your sector. What are the things going on in your sector? The business environment is somewhat wider. What's going on in the UK? What's going on in Europe? What's going on in your markets? And in each of these 3 areas, there are different risks, and each of them would have a likelihood, an impact, and you would have to track or treat them. Each of these 3 areas at the moment would be the focus of a great deal of activity because of all change, because of BREXIT, and to a certain extent because of COVID. So your risk managers and your business continuity people, and of course together they would look after the resilience of your organisation, should be very busy readjusting these 3 elements in particular. A 5th element would be performance measures. How do you measure your business? So of course this too would have changed because of both Brexit and COVID. It would no longer be the same way of measuring effectiveness in your business as it was 18 months ago. People are in different places. Knowledge management would be a 6th area, and here your intellectual property might have changed because of Brexit. Your IT systems will certainly have changed because more people are working from home. So there's been an adjustment in this area too. which needs to be re-evaluated from a risk perspective, and of course different track and treat mechanisms put in place to manage them. Management processes too will have changed, and that's important because it comes back to the leadership issue, and the final element of this particular scorecard would be organisational values, and they might have changed too, and those might have an impact on leadership as well. So you can see that you can break down an organisation in terms of risk into a managed risk scorecard with elements which reflect different parts of the business and how risks in those different parts of the business are identified, what the likelihood of them happening are, what the impact is, and whether you decide to track them or treat them. Now, once you've measured, once you've got hold of all the risks in the organisation, you can build a dependency model. And the dependency model says, well, this is a risk, this is the probability or the likelihood of it happening, this is what we've decided to do about it, track or treat it, and if it requires a countermeasure, we can put one in place. So, for example, in a house, the central heating system might stop. Let's say the probability of that is going wrong is 10%. So how do you deal with a 10% going wrong? Well, you might decide to select an electric heater to cover the central heating requirements. So the issue is the central heating going wrong. There's a 10% chance of that going wrong. The way to introduce a countermeasure to it is by putting in place an electric heater. That reduces the overall risk of heating going wrong to a bare minimum, and so you can go through the whole organisation in that way, identifying an event, a risk, and putting in place a countermeasure. By doing that in each part of the business, you can build up a picture or a dependency diagram of what the whole organisation looks like, and you can put a probability against each of those things, each of those risks happening and going wrong, and you can put a countermeasure to deal with most, if not all, of the risk, but in the end you end up with residual risk, and that has a probability. And there are two key things which can be identified from such a model. One is a catastrophic series of events, and the second is a worst case set of events. So in each of those scenarios you can find a probability and a series of events which will demolish or disorientate or damage your business. That's how a dependency modelling tool works. So starting with uncertainty, we look more closely at measurement, and we look more closely at description. We look at the irrational and rational man, and we look at processes so that we can identify risks, we can estimate risks, we can evaluate risks in order to create a risk scorecard, which gives us probabilities of things happening in key elements of the business, against which we can create a dependency diagram, which in turn can tell us what the catastrophic series of events or the worst case series of events are likely to be to damage or disorientate or disrupt our business. So that's how we deal with uncertainty through to dependency modelling, and these are the key issues in risk managing your business. So thank you very much for watching. There are a few additional notes below. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. Till the next time, thanks again for watching. Goodbye now.